and public policy at the University of Michigan, Justin Wolfers, and Democratic strategist, pollster, and MS Now political analyst, Cornell Belcher. It's great to see both of you guys. Justin, President Trump promised that once the war is over, things like gas prices, they're going to go right back down, and stock prices, they'll go right back up. So give me the facts.
At some point, we should stop just reporting on what the president says because it's so rarely true. It's not really news, is it? If the president tells you that stock prices are going to go straight back up, then you might want to ask yourself why he's telling you that rather than buying the stock now, knowing that it's going to go high later. Anyone who tells you that they know with any certainty where stock prices are going is a liar. But more than that, the claim that going to war in Iran is in any way good for the American economy is just nonsense. We see stock prices have fallen. We see prices at the grocery store and at the gas pump are already up. We see business confidence down. We see consumer confidence down. We see a whole world on edge. This is a very, very dangerous thing for the world, for people, and yes, also for the economy.
Cornell, to Justin's point that this is dangerous for the world, for people, what does it do on a psychological level to people, to voters who are going to have to make decisions around all of these converging crises at the moment? I'm particularly interested in young voters and some of the sort of squishier voter groups, because often when I talk to them, I hear this sort of feeling like the concept of the American dream is just slipping through their fingers. They can't always fully articulate it, but it is just this feeling of alienation. And I wonder what all of this is going to do to our political and social fabric.
Well, that's a fantastic question. I wish I had the answers to it, but I don't. But here's I will give some insight. You know, what we constantly hear in qualitative research, particularly from younger voters, is this sense that the whole idea of them even owning a home and owning a car, and many of the things that we thought of the bedrock of the American dream, they see it as growing further and further away from reality with them. And they talk about sort of interest rates and mortgage prices. And what they're increasingly talking about, not just younger voters, but quite frankly, a lot of those independent voters that we talk to also, when you talk about bring up the war, is, you know, look at all the money we're spending over there in the Middle East when we have all these problems at home, when we are losing health care insurance, and health care affordability is something that we're struggling with. And, you know, and college education for parents is something that they see skyrocketing and struggling with. And all these things that we should be spending this money on here at home to try to help, you know, working families get ahead. They see it being squandered over in the Middle East, and they're upset about it. And it's becoming the war is going to be a big voting issue in this country come midterm elections.
Justin, how right are voters to be upset, to feel that alienation? Because, you know, we of course are watching the war and getting updates on it day in and day out, but there is also this story in the background of an AI bubble that might be about to burst. People are hearing that there is some scary stuff going on in the private credit market. And when you hear that there's all this, that there's already destabilization, but that actually around the corner, here comes even more. I guess, can you help me understand how real the risks are for people?
They're absolutely real, and we also shouldn't overstate them. Look, I'm going to put in an advertisement right now for you, which is the more you understand economics, the more you start to understand these broad forces that are shaping your life. Advertisement over. I think there's an important distinction, you know, between things that are being done to you and choices that are being made by you. And some of what's going on right now are things that are happening to you. Our country is going to war. We aren't choosing it. Prices are rising. We didn't choose that. AI is going to rewire the labor market, and I think in very interesting ways, some good, some bad. But again, people didn't choose that. We each want to tell a story where we're the captain of our own ship. And I think a lot of what people are feeling right now is it's the stormy seas that are creating the ups and downs, and we're not really the captain of the ship as much as we'd like to be.
Cornell, people have raised the question, my colleague Catherine Rampell recently did in the Bulwark, you know, if you look at everything that this administration is doing, it's almost like they're trying to lose the midterms. And I'm curious how you read it. You laugh, and it is sort of like, well, if you were a mole working, for one of the Republicans or for Trump, and you wanted to make sure the Democrats had the absolute best midterms environment they possibly could, would you make any different decisions than the ones that have been made right now? I'll let you answer.
No. Well, no. I mean, look, the economy slumping. Americans growing even more anxious about the economics and their pocketbook issues. At the same time, they don't think the president or Republicans are paying attention at all to their pocketbook issues, and they're focusing their time and energy in other places. I mean, look at the president's numbers around cost of living. Look at his numbers around handling the economy. But it's also look at his numbers around border security and almost every other tangible key metric. His numbers have completely cratered on. Look, I've been around doing this a long time. I've seen presidents' job approval go up and down, but I've never seen this level of just complete cratering around every metric that is important to voters. You're looking at a failed presidency. So I'm not at all surprised then that they are in fact trying to rig the system. They know what they're doing is unpopular, and look, we've had election after election since the president's been in office where Democrats have overperformed, 10 to 15 points over what they typically do, and red areas, right? We've been picking up seats in what traditionally red areas of the country. So the only thing they have to do right now, and you see that with the SAVE Act and other measures that they're trying to push, is try to rig the election so they're not held accountable. That is the only way they escape the wrath of the American people, is to in fact make sure that the voice of the American people is diluted.
Justin, to take one of the major problems facing this administration, just the war with Iran, in the best case scenario, if President Trump were able to make a deal with Iran this week, when would our lives feel normal again?
Well, they might feel normal in a couple of months, but they're never going to get back to where they were before. If you look at what's happened to US stocks, for instance, it's knocked roughly $2,000, maybe $5,000, maybe even $10,000 off the average value of stocks that the average American family holds. If you look at oil price futures, we see that oil prices are expected to be high for not just months, but in fact years. And then you can think more broadly about how this is going to rewire the globe. The president just submitted to Congress the president's budget, in which he asked for an extra $350 billion in defense spending. Now, I just want you to understand that's if you're going to spend another $350 billion, that means you have to tax another $350 billion. So implicitly, then, he has just announced an extra tax hike of $3,000 to $4,000 per household in order to fund this bigger military that the president all of a sudden feels that we need. So the consequences here for our economic well-being are dramatic.
Justin Wolfers and Cornell Belcher, great to have both of you. Thank you.